Welcome to this session where certified legal nurse consultants discuss the different ways that they use their CLNC certification. I want to introduce you to 4 certified legal nurse consultants: Michelle Neal, Doreen Goldstein, Dale Barnes, and Susanna Raj. And each of them today will talk a little bit about how they use their certification in unique and varied ways. So Michelle, I want to start with you. What would you say is one of the more unique ways that you've used your CLNC certification?
For me, Vicki, I have used mine in all different ways that I really never thought that I would. So my background is emergency medicine, and one of the first few cases that I did was actually a nursing home case. And then since then, I've done a lot of personal injury, medical malpractice. I've even done some family law, which is kind of interesting. And most recently, just to give you all just an example of a kind of unique type of case, is I recently did a case that involved a drive-by shooting. I worked on the personal injury side of that, not the criminal side, but that was very different for me. And I've been doing this for 8 years. So that was kind of interesting.
Can you share a little bit about your role in that case?
Yes, so I was on the consulting side of that. So what I basically needed to do for the attorney was discuss all of the injuries that the person sustained that was in the other vehicle. And actually, it was a young female who was pregnant at the time. And there was some drug issue involved with the person that was driving her vehicle. At the time, it was her boyfriend, and another person drove by and was shooting at them. So she ended up surviving, but of course she had multiple complications, and then she also ended up losing the baby. So there was a lot of things that I had to find and give the facts about what type of injury she had and how that could or could not have resulted in the loss of pregnancy. So it was a very interesting case.
Thank you. How about you, Suzanne? What's a more unique way that you've used your certification?
I've used my certification in a lot of ways, not only in the area of my clinical expertise with attorneys, but also on-site in practice within healthcare organizations as well. I use my legal nurse consulting expertise to interface between regulatory compliance and risk and exposure for those facilities. So when you're on site in healthcare organizations, whether it be hospitals or long-term care, acute care, LTACs, anything really, I have been called to give either presentations or to do on-site risk reviews. And having my certification as a legal nurse consultant has given me that insight and ability to share why things should be changed, say in the facility operations side, to mitigate risk.
And also by setting yourself up as an industry expert, that also helps you with your relationships with attorneys, doesn't it?
Yes, and oftentimes my existing attorney clients will defer to my opinions about scenarios. I just got an email yesterday late about reporting requirements or what the risk is for independent living versus an assisted living. And so my attorney clients would like, Suzanne, have at it, just communicate with their clients. So it does afford me that ability to be a resource for my attorney clients in that regard.
Thank you. Dale, what is one of the more unique ways that you've used your CLNC certification?
Interesting, like Suzanne, I've also used it in facilities. I've worked with risk management in facilities. I did for a while, the attorney's not in practice anymore, but all he did was dog bite cases. And that was kind of unique. And it was interesting. And it sounds like they would all be the same, but they weren't. And I've done a couple of criminal cases, which were trying to figure out if what the person died from was injuries that were caused by another person, or by whether or not it was pre-existing conditions. So things like that, very interesting things that are things I never really thought about, in nursing necessarily before. And I think we can just help in such a variety of cases. I've done bad faith insurance cases. I didn't even know what that was before I was a certified legal nurse consultant.
Well, explain that for people listening, a little bit about those cases.
The bad faith insurance cases, and I've worked both sides of this, but it is when someone or a family that is insured are claiming that they didn't get the amount of benefit that they thought was coming to them. A lot of it's long-term care, but some of it's regular health insurance. I don't do anything that's non-medical with that. But either for the plaintiff or the defense, you just have to be able to read the contract for the insurance and really understand what's included, and then see what the medical conditions are by going through all the records.
Thank you. All right, Doreen, I love the fact that primarily your experience is in obstetrical nursing, and yet one of your major clients is a company that sells elevators and manages elevators. And so you handle a lot of elevator injury cases. All right, how did you get out of that comfort zone of OB and into the world of elevator injuries?
I know, it's crazy. And no, nobody delivered in an elevator. It's not like my first case was a delivery in an elevator. I just took what we learn in the program, and what they're looking for is our nursing expertise, and a case is a case. You take all the nursing process that you learn and you put it to use. And I just stepped out of my comfort zone and I consult on those cases. I do not testify on the elevator cases. I only testify in labor and delivery. So yeah, it's been a great ride. But a bump, right? Great ride.
And you have clients all over the United States and even in Canada. How do you communicate with these different attorneys?
What I do, most of it is by email or by phone calls. Even before COVID, rarely did I have to go, unfortunately, to Puerto Rico to talk with one of my clients. But yeah, most of what I do is by email, mail, or by the telephone.
Any unique ways some of your colleagues have used their certification that you know of?
Yeah, actually, a few years back, I remember speaking with one of them who told me that she got hired by her attorney to be a jury consultant. So what she did is she sat during voir dire and watched the ways that they picked them. And then kind of in between or during the break, she would say to her attorney, he was interested, she's not interested. And they actually hired her to sit through the trial also and observe what the jury thought of either side. It was pretty interesting.
Had she been involved in the case already, or did she
Yes.
come in? Okay.
Yeah, she had a relationship with that attorney. I think you'd almost have to. I don't think a random attorney would hire you to sit and, that's what they do pretty much.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really fun role to play. Absolutely. All of you have acquired significant clients. And Michelle, could you describe what a significant client for you looks like?
For me, a significant client is somebody that I have consistent work with, a good relationship with, that I feel like I can bounce ideas off them. We work together collaboratively, and I learn a lot from them and they learn a lot from me as well. I work with a couple pretty big firms here in Florida, and I feel like that's taught me a lot of different things about a lot of different cases.
Thank you. And did you have any special strategies that you use to acquire these clients and develop the relationship with them?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I actually took your mail call approach that you teach during the course for marketing. And this particular client that I'm referring to is, like I said, is a big firm here. And so sometimes the bigger firms are a little more push to get into them. So I did the mail call approach. I followed up as you suggested. I did that 3 times. And the 3rd time, I just felt like, okay, I'm going to have to move on. There's no other connection I can make. Well, I ended up finding somebody who knew of this specific attorney that dropped my name, and I was able to get in that way. They didn't even necessarily know me, but it was just a small conversation. I know this woman who's a legal nurse consultant. She may be able to help you out. And then that attorney realized that I had been the person calling and emailing, and that is how we made the connection. And he called for an interview. I went in that day and I walked out with a case back in the day when you actually had a box of records.
So persistence pays off, and
Definitely.
obviously networking as well.
Yes.
How about you, Suzanne? I mean, you have clients that you've probably been with for decades and quite significant. Can you describe what they look like?
They are large firms. Some are nationwide with multiple offices. So I have been very fortunate in having a great relationship. When I first started to become a legal nurse consultant, I mean, there was actually a law firm that was advertising for one. So in my situation, I just applied it was for an independent contractor relationship. I applied, and along with many other colleagues of mine who I heard about when I went back to work. Did you see the ad in the paper? And that was back in the day. Sorry, Michelle, way back in the day where classified ads were in the paper. It wasn't anything of this Craigslist or Indeed, or there was none of that, right? So it was old school, good old newspaper. But it's similar in the approach of follow-up, whether it was email, call, or whatever, it was call. It wasn't email, it was call. And I would call, and I called every week for 6 weeks. I called. I got on a first name basis with the legal secretary, and it come to find out, the partner was in trial. And so that's why they hadn't moved forward with the interview process. But when my last call that I made, she said to me, Suzanne, I put your resume on the top of the stack. So I think the takeaway is, and the strategy to obtaining your first client is to follow up and be persistent, professionally and courteously. And when I did get that call for the interview, I too walked out with a banker's box of records. So, but maintaining the relationships with the large firms is really, really important. And maintaining that communication, those lines of communication, is probably the most important strategy to maintaining that client relationship. And then by doing so, they naturally refer you to all of their colleagues, and your business will grow from there.
Thank you. Dale, what does a significant client look like for you?
A significant client to me is someone who keeps coming back for more, who says to me, gee, I couldn't do this without you. I really love hearing that. And then I get a phone call from a colleague of theirs saying, so-and-so told me to call you. And that's the best compliment ever. So those are significant clients. And like Suzanne, a lot of my clients are in large firms and they refer within the firm. But I also have clients that are in solo practices, but they tell their friends too. So that's always a good thing for me, is to have someone who I know really appreciates what I do and who is happy enough with it that they're going to refer their friends.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you mentioned that you have attorneys that work in solo practice, because I know especially some of the beginning certified legal nurse consultants, I often remind them that, yeah, there's a lot of big law firms out there, but a single lawyer can keep you busy, right? So for a lot of certified legal nurse consultants, 2 to 5 attorneys is all they need to stay busy. So we never want to ignore those attorneys that either practice solo or with just a few other attorneys. Now, Doreen, you also have individual attorney clients. So you've got like a big corporation as a client, you've got individual attorneys. What's the difference in how you went about acquiring these clients?
So like Michelle, how I got the one attorney client in my hometown was by sending him an email. Actually, I sat down one afternoon and decided I was going to send out a bunch of emails marketing. And sure enough, I had a lot of wrong email addresses, so I'd get them kicked back. So this one time I got the message that I had an email, I thought, oh, wrong email address again. And all it said, Vicky, was call me. And you've actually met that attorney. He's very like, call me. So I called him, and that's how I acquired that one attorney. Whereas the corporation, how I got them was by marketing. I actually exhibited at an attorney conference and met general counsel. And persistence and perseverance, Suzanne, boy, 6 months was after they said they needed me by the time I actually was in the right person's office.
Was that more intimidating to market to this corporation versus the solo attorney?
I just figured, you know what? What's one attorney versus thousands of attorneys, right? They still need your brain. So yeah, it was intimidating, but talking one-on-one, it's the same as anything. So they do need us for our brains.
Yeah, that's great. And I think you're making a really good point. It might be a large corporation, but at the end of the day, you are talking to one or several individuals. So all of you, it kind of sounds like you've really nurtured your professional relationship with your clients, especially the clients that you've had for several years or more. Okay, I'm going to start with you, Michelle. What would you say is like one of your number one strategies for nurturing that professional relationship?
Number one, without a doubt, is communication.
Okay, now Suzanne, I need you to add to that. You can't repeat it.
She got the easy one.
So you gotta give me another one. First is communication. What's next?
Timeliness, being on time with your work product and being open to constructive feedback, having broad shoulders.
Excellent. All right, so Dale, we've got communication and timeliness. Give me a third.
Okay, well, I do agree with them, but in addition to that, I would say, persistence in doing nice little things for the attorney or the attorney group, remembering things like birthdays or anniversaries, and just so they know that they're just not another client to you, that they're a person that you care about.
Excellent. All right, so Doreen, we've got communication, timeliness, and these thoughtful gestures. Give me
Dedication.
one more. Okay.
Dedication. You have to let them think that they're the only attorney that you work for, even if you have 100 other ones. They just want you when they want you. So you have to show them the dedication.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for sharing the different ways that you've used your CLNC certification. And if anyone's interested, be sure to contact the office and they're happy to work with you. Thank you all.